It's always a great day to make a trade in Dynasty League. So today we're going to talk about 6 different players that you should be looking to acquire for rookie picks in this year's rookie draft. Earlier this week, we talked about different players that you should be looking to sell for rookie picks. We're going to flip the script and now talk about 6 players that you should acquire for rookie picks, Cameron. And I'll let you kick us off here. Who's the first player you're looking to acquire for rookie picks this year?
I'm going with DK Metcalf. And over the course of us running this entire podcast, I've really fully shifted on DK. When we first started, it was I'm out. And now I've gone to the other side of the spectrum. And I'll admit, when you look at the entire season last year, it was rough for DK Metcalf. His worst season in targets and receptions since his rookie year, his second worst season, in yards and career low in touchdowns. But he did, the advanced stats were pretty decent. He was 4th highest in ADOT, 7th highest in air yard share at 41%. JSN was at 31st with 29%. He had a 1.97 yards per route run compared to JSN's 1.96, but he was 30th in catchable targets. But when I dug a little bit deeper, what I really noticed was it was a very drastic change between weeks 1 through 7 and then weeks 11 through 18. You might go, well, why'd you leave 4 weeks out? Why are we jumping? Because he sprained his MCL in week 7. And when he came back, he wasn't the same player. When you look at the stats, it really makes sense. He was 5th in targets in weeks 1 through 7 with 61, 12th in receptions with 35, 3rd in yards with 568, 43% air yard share, and he was tied for 7th in end zone targets. Fast forward to weeks 11 through 8, 42nd in targets with 47, 43rd in receptions with 31, 33rd in yards with 424, 39% air yard share, and 30th in end zone targets. So I think what we noticed is DK started out playing really well. If DK could have kept that going throughout the entire season, we're having a very different conversation than we are right now about him and maybe even JSN. But luckily for you, if you don't have DK on your team, this gives you that buy low opportunity. And it's also a contract year for DK Metcalf. He's going into his age 27 season. He'll be 28 next December, and he's definitely looking to get paid. If he puts out a big season here, we could see DK Metcalf walking home with a bag next year. He's got a new offensive coordinator coming on in, which I don't know how much that's actually going to change for him, right? It's Clint Kubiak, right? I knew it was Clint Kubiak, but then I was going to say,
I was saving a lot of my thoughts on DK Metcalf revolve around Clint Kubiak, but keep going.
Yep. And obviously, Ryan Grubb, they threw the ball more than anyone last year, so it's hard to do better than that from an offensive coordinator perspective. But Tyler Lockett's a probable cut candidate at this point too. So you're really narrowing this down to those 2 guys. And when I look at these rookie picks, right, he's going around the same range, according to Keep Trade Cut, as Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka. And I'm thinking about the upside for these guys. I'm thinking, I don't know if either of them are truly ever going to be the wide receiver 1 on a team, right? Great 1Bs is the way I see both of them as of right now.
Yep.
Whereas DK, I think he still is that 1. I still think he can be. We're talking about a guy who in the last 5 years has been a top 10 wide receiver twice. He's been a top 20 wide receiver 4 times. Like, isn't that the upside we're just hoping Luther Burden and Emeka get to, right? Isn't that what we're just hoping? Because I don't see either of them being continuous top 10 guys. That's not what I'm projecting them to do. So if we're just hoping for them to be DK, and we know that he's still producing when he's healthy going into a contract season, this is where it is. I think I'd rather take the known commodity in this case.
Landing spots are going to be so crucial for both Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka, and even the running backs you look at in this range too, because it's pretty clear Ashton Genty 101, Tet McMillan 102, and then it's going to be a dogfight from there on out. It's probably going to be a handful of running backs before you get to a Luther Burden or Emeka Egbuka. But the one thing, and I'll go back to DK Metcalf here. I think the thing that concerns me a little bit about DK Metcalf is that Clint Kubiak, he's going to bring in a much more balanced attack. And ironically enough, one of my first players that I talk about also has to do with the Seattle Seahawks. I'll get to that more momentarily. I think he's going to bring in more of a balanced attack, but what I was at least encouraged by is how both Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed were able to flourish under a Clint Kubiak offense last year. And I think I'm not going to sit here and tell you DK Metcalf is going to be Rashid Shaheed because that's just sloppy and copy and pasting, and that's just stupid, right? But when you look at how Rashid Shaheed was thriving on the deep ball from Derek Carr, you have Geno Smith who isn't afraid to sling it around. I think there's really good possibility here for a DK Metcalf bounce back. And I was saying it all throughout the back half of last season. I mean, DK Metcalf was never 100% healthy. So you're just buying the dip on a guy who was basically injured for what you named it, the second half of the season almost, basically 8 games over the back half of the season. He was just not playing 100% healthy. So I'm good if you want to go out and buy DK. I am curious to see how, when I do all my projections for this upcoming year specifically, how I see Clint Kubiak's offense actually impacting this pass attack. Tyler Lockett, I don't think drew enough targets to really be like a massive, like, oh my gosh, look at how many targets are freed up now for DK Metcalf and JSN, who I think is still a factor in this. But is JSN a concern for you here? Like, is there a world where he actually comes in and, like you say, DK Metcalf can still be a 1? Like, are we sure JSN isn't the guy who comes in and makes DK Metcalf a 1B then, just like we think Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka could be?
Yeah, definitely could happen. We've seen DK though thrive with other wide receivers before. I'm obviously Tyler Lockett
Right.
for multiple years. That was an offense that didn't throw the ball a lot, and both had 2 seasons where they finished top 10. So I don't think, obviously, prime Russell Wilson versus Geno Smith,
Right.
different story there. But I do think that he can, even if JSN takes another step forward, I think that DK is going to be just fine. I still think that he has top 10 upside. I think he's probably more in that top 10 to top 20 range. For me, that's where I see him landing. Whereas, these rookies, you're hoping that they find the right landing, especially right now when you're making this trades. You're hoping they find the right landing spots. You're hoping they're as good as you think they are. And just put a number on those picks, because I know I threw it 2 rookies.
Yeah.
I'm looking like 106 through 108, 109
Mm-hmm.
to go get DK Metcalf, right? And obviously, we had a couple comments on our last video about Jameson Williams. It's going to depend on your league. Certain managers, I know the manager Jackson, I love you, but there's no way Jackson's partying with DK Metcalf for the 107 or lower. Like, it's probably got to be the 104. And we're in a non-super flex, so it's probably even got to be like the 103 for Jackson to part with DK Metcalf. And so, I understand that, but for me, this is the range I'd be comfortable selling a rookie pick to go get DK.
So I mentioned there was a player in this offense I'm actually more excited about than DK Metcalf, but before we talk about them, want to make sure, man, I still see you, the 90% out there who consume our content but are not subscribed to the channel. Make sure you do that quick. Do us a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on that notification bell as well. We are always posting fantasy football content all throughout the offseason. We're on a nice little dynasty stretch here. We're going to get into some rookie comps next week. We got so much fun NFL draft and dynasty content for you all here this offseason. So hang around for a while. Hit that notification bell. Hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you a part of the fellowship because we just love talking fantasy football. We want to do it with you all. So thanks for being a part of our community. The name I want to bring up is Kenneth Walker. I am so in on what he could be in the Seattle Seahawks offense next year, and I am very happy to give up rookie picks to do so because I'm just struggling to see where the disconnect is here with Kenneth Walker. If the biggest thing is that he's in the final year of his rookie contract and he doesn't have a 5th-year option since he wasn't a first-round pick, then I feel like valuing him below guys like Josh Jacobs and James Cook, who you can make the same argument for, feels just kind of silly because Ken Walker's only 24 years old. He'll turn 25 in October, but that means we should still have 2 to 3 more productive seasons before we hit that age 27 running back cliff where we really start to see running back production decline. And just last season, before he was placed on IR, the running back 10 in fantasy points per game while being the running back 7 in expected fantasy points per game. Now, the rushing attack was bleak. Okay, he couldn't even average 4 yards per carry because the Seattle offensive line was absolutely garbage. It was absolutely terrible. But Ken Walker did draw a career high 53 targets, and that may have something to do with Ryan Grubb's offense, right? But more so the point of me pointing that out is that we have a way out here if the rushing production continues to stink coming into this next year. But I think the biggest reason that I'm still in on Ken Walker, though, is what Clint Kubiak had to say about him at his introductory press conference.
Yeah, well, I think Ken can fit in just about in any style. He's a talented player, so I'm really excited about him in this zone scheme. Okay, but I've seen Ken in all schemes play really good football. I've seen the guy catch the ball well out of the backfield, which I think is really important for our backs, that we utilize them. Obviously, whatever we can do to get them touches, throwing them routes out of the backfield, throwing them screens, getting the ball in their hands, getting the ball to our best runners, and that's what he is. So, and I think he's got a really good group of teammates that complement him as well, and especially with Charbonnet. So, looking forward to him in this scheme, and we're going to ask a lot out of him.
I mean, we just saw Alvin Kamara total nearly 1,500 yards last year, 7 yards shy of 1,500 total yards. That was his most since 2020. There's still plenty of tread left on the tires here for Ken Walker. I think we get a much more balanced offensive attack under Clint Kubiak this next year and potentially beyond, right? If Ken Walker does re-sign with this team. But even if he doesn't re-sign with the Seattle Seahawks after this year, this dude is too talented to not land on his feet somewhere, like we just saw with the Josh Jacobs, like we just saw with the Joe Mixon, like we just saw with the Derrick Henry. If he gets on a better offense with a better offensive line, it is like wheels up, pants off for Ken Walker from here on out. So I'm like normally I'm very much a sell these running backs, 2 years too early. This is one where I think, you can get in on Ken Walker. You still got another 2-3 years before you really have to worry about selling.
So I guess my question then is, what picks are you going, like, are you looking to sell for Ken Walker? Because that's where I struggle, is I just don't know how much I'm willing to pay up to go get Walker. Because I personally, as of right now, I think I like Hampton and TreVeyon Henderson more than I like Kenneth Walker.
Okay.
So is that the range you're looking? Like, would you be, let's say super flex league, would you be willing to give up the 104, 105 to go get Ken Walker?
I would be willing to give up the 104, 105, because what I think it's going to come down to at the end of the day is one of these other running backs, not named Ashton Genty, is going to land in a great spot. But then let's say I think the Las Vegas Raiders are an interesting spot. If Ashton Genty doesn't end up on the Las Vegas Raiders, I think whoever lands there can end up being a very interesting running back, or even the Minnesota Vikings, right? Those are probably the two spots that I think people will be most intrigued by. But depending on who it is, though, depending on their actual fit within the offense, I'm okay giving up Ken Walker instead of one of these. They're not mystery box guys, but I don't know. Ken Walker, to me, has the talent to remain relevant in the Seattle Seahawks offense, and again, potentially beyond. I think he lands on his feet afterwards. I'm seeing so many different opinions on Amari and Hampton. TreVeyon Henderson, I think, is going to be landing spot dependent to some extent. Those are the two names that are in the same range as Ken Walker, and depending on where they land, I might just prefer Ken Walker outright to both of them. So yeah, I'm good giving up the 104 to 106. I'd even, if you really want to make it happen, I'd be willing to give up the 103. That might be stretching it a little bit for my preference, but you get one of those mid first round picks, the 104 to the 106. I'm very happy turning that into Ken Walker personally.
Yeah. And again, I do want to clarify, because we said this last time, and I think we got a couple comments, but we are talking super flex leagues. Yes. So if you're looking at this and you're going, really, the 106, and you're talking about getting Henderson or Hampton there, it's subtract 2 picks if you're in a non-super flex league. So if you're non-super flex, we're talking 103, 103 to 104.
Potentially, where we don't even know if Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders will go ahead of some of these guys.
100%.
I mean, again, that's where it becomes league dependent, like you said, where I think some leagues will drive up the value of a mystery box Cam Ward and a Shedeur Sanders, who, again, we can make the argument they're not even quarterback 5 in last year's class, right? Again, league dependent there. So when I say 104 to 106, again, potentially the same in non-superflex, but in superflex, that is specifically what we're talking about here. Cameron, you have an interesting name here next that you're willing to trade rookie picks for.
Yep.
I'm really curious to hear your case on it, because I'm not sure if I'm entirely in the same boat.
So it's Chris Olave, and I'm going to start by saying this one is not for those with a weak stomach, because you are trading for a guy who has concussion issues, and people were already pointing at, hey, should he retire after this last concussion? Similar conversations that we've had about Tua. So that is, if that scares you away, that's fine. If I'm not playing that game, I've been burned by injuries too much, that's all right. For me, Chris Olave, again, it's the similar argument to DK Metcalf, except he is younger than DK, right? I think he's 24 years old right now. He's at 87, 1,105 in 2023, 72, 1,042 and 4 last year. I'm not really, or not last year, in 2022. 2024, obviously, with the concussion and everything that happened, it's kind of a wash just talking about those stats because he was gone in week 7, and so he didn't make it past then. But for me, I really like the addition of Kellen Moore because what Kellen Moore has done for offenses is he's really had that top wide receiver benefit over the last 3 seasons, or top 2. Obviously, this last year with A.J. Brown, he was only a top 15 wide receiver in points per game. Disappointing compared to where A.J. Brown usually finishes. The Eagles did have Saquon Barkley, who had one of the best running back seasons we've ever seen. So I do think that changes it a little bit. But both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith were top 15 in points per game. Keenan Allen on the Chargers 2023 was wide receiver 3 in points per game. And in 2022, CeeDee Lamb was wide receiver 7 in points per game. I'm not saying Chris Olave is CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown or, a prime Keenan Allen either, but I am saying he is the wide receiver 1 of the Saints. And I think that Kellen Moore just gives him a big bump. We look at that 2023 season, he was top 15 in target percentage or target share, targets per route run, yards per route run, and air yard share. I understand, Rashid Shaheed kind of came out of the scene. But for me, I just don't see it as that big of a threat, especially this next year, just because he's coming off an ACL tear. As a speed guy coming off an ACL tear, I just think that hampers you enough where I don't think you're as big of an impact as you were the year before. And so, yeah, again, like I said with DK, I think we're talking about these first round wide receivers, we're hoping they're going to be in that Chris Olave range of wide receiver 24 to wide receiver 12. And for me, when I look at Olave, he's in a situation where he's the wide receiver 1, and he is already, shown that he can produce in that range. So he's already doing what you're hoping these guys can do. So for me, that's really what it comes down to. Is I see Olave, as long as he's healthy, is going to produce in the way that these guys you're just hoping to produce. So I would turn again that 105, 106, 107 into Chris Olave.
I struggle with Olave because there's a lot of reasons why I remain hesitant, and not just on the injury front. Like I think that's the one thing that when I mentioned him as a sell earlier, like 2-3 weeks ago that was when we did our dynasty buys and sells. I mentioned the injury as like a leading concern for that. Part of it is too, I have zero clue if Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback of this team next year. Do I really want to trust Spencer Rattler throwing him the football? Like my ideal scenario for Derek Carr this season is that he gets up out of New Orleans and gets to the Tennessee Titans where you can have some fun over there with Calvin Ridley and the other weapons at I can't even say weapons at his disposal. You got Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, but that wide receiver room could use some help. But I digress. The thing with Kellen Moore, he is bringing over it, and this is like reported. I don't think it's officially inked yet. But Doug Nussmeier is becoming the offensive coordinator under Kellen Moore. He's bringing over some continuity from Philadelphia as well, which could bode well in terms of this offensive rhythm and structure under Kellen Moore, what he's going to bring to the table. I don't know if I could justify sending rookie picks away for Chris Olave. I think there's enough mystery box potential with Chris Olave here where I personally would rather just hold on to my pick and see what I get out of a Luther Burden and a Emeka Egbuka, especially, once we see where the landing spots are. I feel like we're talking about landing spots in February, and that's just like not totally plausible to take into account, though. So I'm torn because I see where you're coming from on Chris Olave. I'm one with a weak stomach, though. I don't think my stomach is strong enough to go out and digest the fact that I would have to give up rookie picks in the first round to potentially get Chris Olave, especially if I'm a running back needy team. Giving up the 105 to the 107 to get an Olave, I might have a shot at a good running back there still. I don't know if I could quite stomach that.
So for me, I think the way I look at it too is the downside for me of Olave is he turns into what Terry McLaurin's career was before Jaden Daniels. And so you're talking about, a wide receiver 20 to 25 guy. You're a little like, right. But I think that's the downside. I think there is still upside with Olave. That's why I'm okay with it. Whereas, these two other guys, I just don't know truly what the downside is. I don't think we've reached a point where we can tell, especially without knowing landing spot. So, and I I understand, and I think if he didn't have, like, if we look back to 2023, if you take away that concussion, I think this is an easy trade. You make this every single time. That's
Sure,
kind of
yeah,
how I'm
yeah.
looking at it as well. And I understand, situations different, all that's different. I just think Chris Olave as a player is worth taking that chance on.
I'll be waiting for your trade offer in our other Dynasty league then,
You're
where I
right,
have Chris Olave. So
You've had one sitting there for 2 days.
I'll have I clearly I've been too busy to look at my trades. Maybe we should take a quick break so I can do that, and we'll be back to talk more players you should look to acquire afterwards. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. And yes, Cameron did send me a trade offer for Chris Olave. It did consist of a first-round pick. I am still sitting on it. I may or may not accept it after the episode. I have some soul searching to do. Look, let's talk about 3 more players. So far, we have talked about DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, and Chris Olave as players you should be looking to acquire for rookie picks. I'm just going to swing for the fences on this one, and people are going to roll their eyes on this one. Now, I can't even say roll their eyes. I'm just going to explain to you, and you'll understand exactly what I'm trying to get at here. Look, sell the farm, sell all your rookie picks for Puka Nacua. All right, do what you can to get this dude on your team, because I want to attack the buzz around the Los Angeles Rams right now, because I think this actually might be the cheapest you're able to end up getting Puka Nacua across, the next 3 years here. Will Cooper Kupp get traded? I honestly don't care, because if he does or not, with Kupp last year, Nacua was a wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game, wide receiver 3 in expected fantasy points, and the wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per route run. Will Matthew Stafford get traded? Will any quarterback needy team actually offer their first round pick this year, which is the reported asking price? I don't believe so. It'd be nice if Matt Stafford stuck around, sure, but you don't think Sean McVay has a backup plan in place if they do decide to deal Stafford? Like, the Rams have mastered manipulating the cap. They'll bring in a guy like Sam Darnold and keep their books perfectly clean in the meantime. So what this comes down to ultimately is that elite players who can command a 28% target share and 9.5 targets per game attached to elite play callers like Sean McVay, these dudes don't just grow on trees, okay? He's valued higher than the 101 right now. So there is no world where you can go out and trade a 102 for Puka Nacua straight up, right? But I'm good giving up multiple 2025 picks to go get Puka Nacua. My favorite packages right now that, again, we use Keep Trade Cut as simply a crowdsourced option. This might not pass in your league, but you know what? Based on how the public is valuing these players overall, we're here to generate ideas. So some of the favorite combos that I've seen floated around out there, like 103 plus a guy like Roma Dunze to swing for a Puka Nacua. For me, that'd be highway robbery, but apparently it's even according to the public. You get Garrett Wilson plus any like mid to late first round pick. I would gladly do that for Puka Nacua. You can just 100% take advantage of the fear mongering here. That's 100% what this is, because when there's blood in the water, you got to be a shark and go attack it to get this kind of an upper echelon dynasty asset. So yeah, it's going to take multiple 2025 picks most likely, or a very solid 2025 pick plus a solid player in return. I'm saying it's worth it to include that 2025 pick to go and get a guy like Puka Nacua, because again, I think this is the cheapest you're probably going to be able to acquire him at, and it's going to feel expensive, but it's 100% worth it, because it ain't going to get any cheaper.
Yeah, I really do think that he's got to be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver at this point. He's in that for sure, that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors range, right? He's in that. He's only 23 years old too. So it's not like you're trading for a veteran. You're trading for a guy who's, pretty much the same
6 years, 6, 7, 8 years of Puka Nacua.
Yeah. No, and I like I think really truly the question with Puka is you got the 101. What are you adding to the 101 to go get Puka?
Right.
Because it's
which is a very difficult conversation.
it is.
Because it still feels like whatever you throw in on top of it, it's like, all right, Ashton Genty, I get him for sure. But then is anything that I get in return, like how much of a sweetener do you think you would need to give up a Puka Nacua on top of Ashton Genty? I'll ask. Sorry, I know you asked the question, but I'll turn this into a discussion point because I do think that's what this is about more than anything.
Yeah, I'm thinking our league, Puka just went for 3 firsts and a second in our league. Obviously a ton. None of them were super high picks. But he, did go for quite a bit. If I have the 101, probably the 101, I'm thinking another late first.
That's where I'm at. You give up like a future late first, even like 2026, 2027 first on top of it.
Yeah.
I think I do. But that's worth it. That's worth it to me.
And I think I do it in a heartbeat. I think if you were like, I honestly am probably considering it. If you offer 101 and the 106 for Puka.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm not saying I'm taking it, but I'm definitely considering it. Right. That's how good Puka is. Yeah, I understand Ashton Genty. He's going to be great. I don't doubt Ashton Genty. But what Puka is doing, top 5 wide receiver at 23 years old, like you said, it doesn't grow on trees. Like it's so hard to find, even with the quarterback. We don't know what's going on. Even like I've seen rumors Aaron Rodgers could be the guy, but even if it's Aaron Rodgers brought in.
Yeah, right. I know they haven't even bring up. Yeah.
Him and Sean McVay together, it's similar to like, Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. I don't care who the quarterback is. Give it to me. Yeah, I want all of it. I want as much as I can possibly get it.
Well, that's exactly what it is because what's the asking price for Jefferson? At least 3 firsts, right? Yes. What's the asking price for Jamar Chase? I mean, that's the tier that Puka Nacua can potentially launch himself into.
Yeah.
And the only reason why he isn't there is because there's this fear mongering going on around what if Matt Stafford leaves and is Cooper Kupp actually going to get traded? Which again, I really don't care because Cooper Kupp was a non-factor this year. So if he gets dealt, great. All the more power to Puka Nacua. Just more targets funneled his way. But man, if you can take advantage of the fear mongering going on, all the question marks around what the Los Angeles Rams will be into it just makes me laugh because you feel like Sean McVay hasn't thought about this. You think Sean McVay can't make something work? I mean, get real. Let's get real. Like this is an upper echelon, potentially top 3 dynasty wide receiver asset. That screw it. Let's go trade the picks and make it happen. I'm going to refresh my rankings here. Where is he actually at in the wide receiver spectrum? Because the interesting conversation is, okay, so it's Malik Neighbors and CeeDee Lamb that are ahead of him. Look, I mean, we're seriously, should Puka Nacua be ahead of CeeDee Lamb?
I think it's a fair conversation. I genuinely think
Malik Neighbors.
Because I do think it's Jefferson and Chase, and then I think Neighbors, Lamb, Puka. If you want to throw Brian Thomas, Amon-Ra, Nico Collins into that, you put those guys in any order. I really don't hate it, and it probably is just Puka to CD and Malik. You put those 3 in any order after Jefferson and Chase. I don't hate it. If you want to say I think one of those guys in the Jefferson Chase tier, I don't hate it because they've all been that good. I mean, over Puka's last stretch, the game after he got suspended, he was averaging 22.3 fantasy points per game. He was second behind Jamar Chase. So he's proven 2 years in a row that he can handle this and he can do it. So yeah, I'm definitely all in on Puka.
Yeah. I mean, there's zero reason why he potentially shouldn't be in that tier. If CJ Stroud was on the Rams, Puka Nacua would be the number 1 dynasty asset, I fear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just naming reality there, right? If you didn't have old man Matt Stafford there.
Yep.
Matt Stafford, great quarterback, Matt Stafford. Nothing against it, but again, take advantage of this fear mongering. It's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver that has potential to be like the number 1 or 2 asset in dynasty. Just go out and take advantage of that. Sell your 2025 picks to go get Puka Nacua. I'll kick it over to you because you're going to stay on the young end of the spectrum here, but we haven't talked about the quarterback position yet, despite talking about Superflex League. So I'm glad we're closing out this video here with 2 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, if you're in a Superflex league, I think you gotta go get JJ McCarthy. And the reason for that is
I like it.
4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, quarterback 9 in fantasy football last year was Sam Darnold. And I want you to remember, a couple years ago, we were making fun of Sam Darnold because he said that he saw ghosts. Right? This is the same Sam Darnold that just put that up. Am I saying JJ McCarthy in his rookie season comes out and does that? I am not saying that. But I do take it seriously that he would be the quarterback 1 in this class.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty definitive. But even if you don't think it's definitive, even if you think he's just in that conversation, his landing spot of the Minnesota Vikings is miles better than anything Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward's going to see.
Yeah.
Miles better. Like, even if a team, unless one of them goes to the Rams, like if the Rams do get the 103 for Matt Stafford decide to take a quarterback, obviously it's a little bit, but you're hoping for like a 0.5% chance of something like that happening, right? You're hoping for the best of the best. I think, JJ's seen a full season. He gets a full offseason to come in again this year. He has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. And then, running backs unknown at this point. O-line was better last year. They have a lot of money to spend this season, so they're going to continue to beef up that O-line. Yeah, and Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson just proved it. We don't care who's back there. We're going to make it work. We just had Sam Darnold lead us to 14 wins, and we were an extremely productive offense. So it's the bet on JJ McCarthy as a talent, but also the bet on just landing spot is going to be so much better than just anything else you're going to find. And I'm going to be honest, I'd give up, other than Genti, I would give up every other rookie pick for him. I'd give up the 102, 103,
Really?
104.
You'd even give up 10?
In a super flex league,
wow.
I do think that JJ McCarthy is going to be that good because I do think he's got enough rushing upside to continue to push himself top 10, top 5 quarterback. And dude's going to be 22 next year. So you're going to have him for quite a while.
I don't know if I go as far as 10, but I mean, it's an interesting, I appreciate that mindset because it challenges my initial thinking of like, no, it's Ashton Genti and Ted. And I don't know who else I would really give up or be willing to give up in order to acquire a quarterback like that. Right. So that's an interesting thought process. I'm with you that even if you don't think JJ McCarthy is the best quarterback out of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, he's going to be the best quarterback in Superflex leagues because of his landing spot. Like we're getting to the point. I don't think people quite understand. We're getting to the point with Kevin O'Connell where we're almost getting a Kevin O'Connell coaching tree. We're almost getting, if he gets it right with JJ McCarthy, we're gonna be talking about, yes, Kevin O'Connell, a descendant of Sean McVay, but look at what Kevin O'Connell is now able to do, and look at what he's sending around the league. Like I think that it might even start with Grant Udinski this year, as the offense coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars under Liam Cohen. Like, Liam Cohen will get a lot of the credit, but Grant Udinski was part of this Vikings offense. Part of planning this Vikings offense this last year. We're that close with Kevin O'Connell if he puts it together with JJ McCarthy. And when you're throwing to Jefferson, Addison, Hawk, he's got no shortage of weapons. Let's say you do bring an Aaron Jones back. Let's say you draft a Travion Henderson in the late first round pick. In the late first round pick with your pick in the late first round. Mm-hmm. There's no shortage of weapons here at JJ McCarthy's disposal. And I do think, again, depending on where all these running backs shake out, looking to gain McCarthy, that could end up being a lot of fun because a lot of these, like, so here's the other thing. Sorry, I got a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to spit them out here. But the other thing that I'm thinking about is, especially when I brought up selling CJ Stroud for the 101 and people thinking that's like borderline blasphemy of like, you can't pull that off again, league dependent. But like a lot of these the top 10 to 12 quarterbacks, it's the 101 or the 102. So really what you need out of JJ McCarthy to make it worth it we'll even say the 102 to 104 is you just need a top 15 quarterback season and like top 16 quarterback season. You just named it. Sam Darnold, quarterback 9. I think it's perfectly reasonable that JJ McCarthy gives you a finish somewhere between, quarterback, we'll say quarterback 10, all the way down to, quarterback 17, which at that point, you got a consistent quarterback 2 in your lineups, which I think is probably worth, the anywhere between the 103 and the 105.
Yep, for sure. I don't got much to add to that.
Yeah, no. I mean, because again, I just took me forever to spit out my thoughts, and then anyways, it was so uncorrelated. Before we get to Dak Prescott, though, if you do want to run your dynasty trades past anybody else as well, make sure you hop over to our Discord down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching. We got dynasty channels specifically set up over there for you all to engage with one another. So hop on in over there. Trying to build more of an active dynasty community there. We got people who hop in our comments. We have people from Redraft who took advantage of our Discord, but we want it to be more of a year-round thing and not just all right, I'm going to pop in and ask my weekly question to see if it get answered or not, right? Hop on in, help us build this dynasty community. We're looking forward to building that all with you. I want to talk about a quarterback as well. Cameron, yours is a little bit more long picture, long-term vision, right? JJ McCarthy still very young, hasn't even played a single regular season snap yet. So I want to talk about Dak Prescott, because if you are a contender, this is a no-brainer move. You go out and get Dak Prescott, because look, I love laughing at the Dallas Cowboys just as much as the next person, but I'm also smart enough to not turn my NFL mockery into fantasy football mockery, because all Dak Prescott has done is finish as a top 15 quarterback in fantasy football for his career. In seasons where Dak has played 12 plus games, he has finished as a top 12 quarterback in 5 out of the 7. He's finished top 15 in 6 out of the 7. And considering this quarterback class isn't that strong, I would gladly, oh my gosh, and people are really shoving Dak Prescott down the dynasty rankings. I would be happy to give my mid to late first round pick that could be spent on a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders just to turn it into an elite quarterback 2 for my team. And I say elite quarterback 2 because if Dak Prescott is giving you quarterback 13 to 15 finishes, that's at the upper end of the quarterback 2 range. That being said, Dak Prescott, he's still got plenty of time. And he's not a spring chicken, obviously, but he's only 31 years old, and both he and CeeDee Lamb are under contract through 2028. So sure, this team has issues in the run game and their offensive line is falling apart, right? I think you can solve some of those offensive line issues in free agency this offseason or even in the draft with a top 12 pick, or we can just go ahead and give them Ashton Genty at 12, which solves a lot of their run game. That'll open up the passing game even more. And there's a lot of ways to figure this out. But again, I mentioned it at the top. This is a no-brainer move if you're a contender in a super flex league, because you're trading away what is a chance on a weak quarterback class. One of the weakest, I shouldn't say one of the weakest, the weaker spot of wherever these running backs end up landing. And debatably the wide receiver 4 in a fine but not great wide receiver class. Again, this is just cost benefit analysis. Give me the guy who can finish as a top 15 quarterback, round out my team, and really launch me forward into potentially contending for the championship this next year. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. Let's just focus on winning now. I get it if you're a younger team and you don't want to give up, a later pick for a Dak Prescott, right? I get that. But again, if you're a contender, go ahead. Dak Prescott's going to be a luxury as your quarterback too.
Yeah, you look at it, other than last year, the 4 years prior since 2020, at least 18 fantasy points per game each season. 3 of those 4 seasons, he had over 20 fantasy points a game. I mean, the dude's been awesome from a fantasy perspective. There's nothing not to like about Dak Prescott. And it's just the fact that he's on the Cowboys. Obviously, last year was a little bit of a down year, and then he got hurt. He had all that. Brian Schottenheimer doesn't exactly inspire you to.
We can laugh at that too. I forgot to mention that. We can laugh at the hiring of Brian Schottenheimer. I laughed at that.
It doesn't inspire you to be excited. But as long as he has CeeDee Lamb, he's going to continue to put up numbers as long as he's healthy. Like you said, he's 31 years old. For a quarterback perspective, he's got 5-6 years left before we're really
If we want to get mad about comparing running back years to quarterback years, I mean, we still got time with Dak Prescott. We still got time.
And it's just, what you're getting. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, you're hoping to get top quarterback 1 upside, right? Top 12 upside.
Oh, you are praying.
Exactly. So it's just give me Dak with CeeDee Lamb. I'm not going to think much about it. If I can get him for the 110 through 112, yep, I'll sign me up. I'll do it all day, every day. Like I'm not even going to consider it.
Yeah, where are we sitting at on Dak's value? Again, he's like the quarterback 22 in Dynasty. We're talking a mid 2026 first is where his value is sitting at. A late 2025 first. So yeah, I mean, we're looking at anything between like the 107 to the 112.
Yeah.
I any of those picks, I'm fine doing in a heartbeat for Dak Prescott. And frankly, the Dak Prescott manager in your league might actually be happy to do that, to pick up a first round pick for Dak Prescott, because that's how much people love to hate on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be a fool and let your NFL mockery turn into fantasy football mockery, because Dak Prescott, it hasn't really given you a reason to do that in terms of like being a very, very solid and elite consistent quarterback too for your team.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We'll put a bow on things there. Next week is a fun week, so make sure you come back. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, because we're going through the rookie running backs and the rookie wide receivers, giving our NFL comps. We're starting to do a little bit more of a deep dive into this rookie class. Afterwards, I mean, we're going to break down some of the combine results as well. We're getting into free agency talk as well. We'll get into rookie rankings. I mean, we have so much coming up for you all. We're really going to break down the landscape of the NFL this offseason, free agent wise, but also incoming rookie wise. So make sure you're around for that. Make sure you follow us on the socials as well for even more content. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, and the good old TikTok. I am at Lucas Wenzel on X, Camlaw FFF for Cameron. Dude, and we got best ball content too. Oh man, I like that's the other thing I have to think about too, is like we go live still during the off season. We do best ball drafts over on Underdog because we're sickos and we can't get enough of it. So if you also want to hang around, do some live streaming with us as well, hop on when we draft some teams, in the middle end of February. Make sure you got the notifications turned on for that as well, so you know when we go live and schedule those. Appreciate you all. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll be back with you next week for some rookie comps. We'll see you then. Deuces.